Koh Tao is definitely one of my favorite islands in Thailand, and this was my first time going freediving, and it was so much fun. So let me tell you about this trip. It all started after Songkran in Bangkok. Songkran is a 4-day water fight festival, and it is so much fun, but also means the city is so chaotic. So after 4 straight days of partying and water fighting, I knew that I needed a bit of a break from the big city. So Koh Tao it was. I had heard a lot of good things, and I was really excited to go check it out in person. Two popular ways to get to Koh Tao is either one by a overnight bus to Chompon and then a ferry to Koh Tao Island, or a flight then a ferry. I decided for the bus option on the way up to the island, but then decided to take a flight on the way back so that I didn't have to do a ton of bus sleeping. This was also a happy medium because the bus was way cheaper than the flight on the way there, so gotta save a little bit of money. The bus from Bangkok all the way to Koh Tao, inclusive of ferry, was about 65 Canadian dollars, which is 47 USD. I left on a Thursday night, and by Friday morning, I was at the Chompon Pier ready to board the ferry just as the sun was rising above the horizon. Overall, the bus was actually quite clean, and they even gave us little snacks, so it wasn't the worst trip, but I don't know if I would do it again. Just kind of sucks to sit in a bus for 8 hours. There were definitely a lot of tourists and locals alike heading to Koh Tao for the weekend. I'd been wanting to go to Koh Tao ever since that I heard that they were famous for their freediving and scuba diving. Apparently, when I went, it was also whale shark season, but don't get too excited, I did not end up seeing a whale shark. But I did hope, and that's also why I decided to go to Koh Tao. It's definitely one of the smaller islands and not the most touristy spot in Thailand. Obviously, islands like Phuket and even Krabi are a little bit more popular. Plus, since Koh Tao is a bit more of a trek to get to, maybe there are fewer visitors, but as you can see, this boat is still pretty packed for such a small island. When I arrived, I paid about 20 baht, or just less than $1 for the pier fee to enter, and then I had to go get breakfast. Since it was Friday, I did have to work a bit during breakfast before checking into my hotel. That breakfast was about $4 US, and 3 nights at this lovely hotel was about $90 US per person. The hotel was comfy with 1 king-size bed, and it was right by the ocean. After working all morning, I went for a quick jog around the island during my lunch break and ended up getting slight heat stroke, so had to sit out on the balcony for the rest of the afternoon to finish my work. After I was done, went to grab some lunch and mango sticky rice right by the beach, which cost $8 US. And this evening was the first part of my free diving training. I decided to take the 1.5-day introductory freediving course with the option to extend to get your first AIDA certification if you enjoyed it after the first day. So this evening was no water training, but we practiced a lot of breath holding and also how to equalize your ears, which is a very important part when it comes to freediving. After this little in-class session, we went to the back to pack our gear for the next morning so that we would be ready to go for our pool session in the morning and our ocean session in the afternoon. The 2 hours passed super quickly and it was already time for dinner, so I stopped by this really lovely Spanish seafood restaurant, also by the beach, and had some tapas and a paella for $25 US, so definitely a pricier dinner. After dinner, I swung by the grocery store to grab some things for the morning, which cost $12 US, and then it was bedtime to get ready for tomorrow. Bright and early at 7 a.m., I met my instructor and the group at the dive shop, and we got ready to put on our gear and head to the pool for our in-water session. This session was really meant to make you quite familiar with the water and also familiar with not breathing. The nice part here is I used to be a competitive swimmer, so feeling comfortable in the water was definitely a-okay, but it's really interesting to learn a little bit more about how to hold your breath in the best way. Now, I didn't exactly capture the video of me holding my breath because that was a little hard because everyone was underwater, but essentially it looked like this. It's all about thinking calming thoughts, and we also talked about how your body actually needs a little bit less oxygen than you think. That urge to breathe really stems from the buildup of carbon dioxide in your body as opposed to a lack of oxygen. So it was quite the mental hurdle as opposed to a physical one to kind of practice your breath holding. In the end, I managed to hold my breath for just over 3 minutes, which I was relatively happy about. Also, tell me that this isn't the most beautiful place to spend your morning at a pool session to train for freediving. The rest of the folks in my training class were also able to hold their breath for anywhere around that 3-minute mark, which was awesome. After a couple hours in the pool, we were told it was time to head to lunch. We got an hour break to go and find our own meal before meeting back at the surf shop so that we could get ready to go into the ocean. It was important to grab something light because we would be going underwater again very soon, so I got a nice little smoothie bowl for $3.50 USD. And then it was time to head to the boat. We loaded up our gear and prepped ourselves mentally to get ready for the first ever freedive session in open water. We headed out to relatively middle of nowhere in the ocean because usually the nicer dive sites are taken by the scuba divers, and then we put on our gear. Now I know what you're thinking, why the hood? Is it really cold in the water? The answer is no. I asked the same question. It's just to protect from the sun because you get burned so easily when you're under the water. And then we were off to the races. About 1 to 3 of us each got one instructor, so one instructor to about 2 to 3 people. And we just started by doing some warm-ups. So holding the line, pulling yourself down, maybe only 5 to 10 meters before swinging right back up again, just to practice your equalization, which is again critical when you're going freediving. Here I am going up and down this rope, following it pretty tightly, and trying to move very slowly so I can keep my heart rate down and thus use less oxygen, being able to stay underwater for longer. It was relatively straightforward and our whole group was crushing it, which really helps boost your internal confidence as well. There's something about being in the middle of the ocean where you can't hear anything, can't breathe, can't really see much besides blue all around you, that's quite peaceful. On occasion, there'd be a big fish that would swim by, but nothing that got close enough that you could see anything more than just a shadow. As I got more comfortable, I also spent some time just chilling at the bottom of the line, practicing holding my breath and taking it all in. After a couple more rounds of going up and down, pulling the rope and getting deeper and deeper every time, I thought I'd try for my maximum depth. Now for this next video, I didn't touch the speed at all. So for those of you at home, you can also try holding your breath with me because I do that a lot whenever I see people underwater in movies or shows or whatever. For this dive, I really took a lot of deep breaths and calmed down my heart rate right at the top, and off I went. I decided this time that I would kick my way down instead of pulling the rope just because I felt that was a little bit easier for me and a little bit more fun. This dive was about 23 meters deep. And the craziest part is your neutral buoyancy only sits at about the 10-meter mark. So once you get past that, instead of floating to the surface when you're under the water like you usually do, you get pushed down instead. So that was quite an interesting feeling as I was going down, feeling that I was getting pushed down even lower. At this depth, even reds look blue because the light just doesn't penetrate that deep. This part of the ocean was actually only 24 meters deep, so I was very close to touching the bottom. Technically, for your AIDA 2 certificate, and especially for an intro course, you should only be going around 12 to 16 meters, but I just thought I'd push it a little bit more, and it was quite fun, and it was good. I was super happy with this dive, and my instructors were also really proud, which I'm an external validation kind of girly, so that made me feel good too. After an hour or two of just going up and down this rope, we decided to go for some fun dives. Here, I kept my fins and my goggles and took off the wetsuit because I thought it was just restricting my movement too much and just went and dove. We boated to an area where there were more reefs and more fish, and we were free to roam around for the next hour. I followed the instructors to various caves to look for lobster and followed schools of fish around where I could. It felt super freeing to just be able to roam around anywhere and practice those techniques of holding your breath longer so that you could stay longer underwater and look at all the cool coral and fish and other marine life. I personally pretended I was a mermaid, which made the whole experience even more fun. And this was essentially the wrap for the intro course. It cost about $120 and this is all that you got to do. If you wanted to do more, you could upgrade your package and go for the AIDA 2 certificate, which required another day of diving and some in-class coursework, plus a little exam. To do that, it would cost another 80 to 90 US dollars. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun freediving and even have the wetsuit tans to prove it because I didn't wear gloves. But I wasn't sure I wanted to spend a whole other day diving when there was lots of other parts of Koh Tao I wanted to explore. But I spoke with the instructor and they said that I actually completed all of the requirements for the AIDA 2 certificate, which included a 2-minute breath hold, 40-minute underwater swim with fins, and 16-meter dive in open water. And so if I wanted to, I could skip the ocean session the next morning and just do the in-class session this evening plus the exam. After debating internally for a bit, I decided to go for it because I thought it would be cool to have AIDA 2 certified freediver as a, thing that I have. And it would also only cost another 25 US dollars, which is like the absolute cheapest I could possibly get an AIDA 2 certificate for. So it was such a good deal, I couldn't say no. This meant I paid a total of 170 US dollars to do all this diving plus get my certificate. With that decision made, I first stopped by to grab some lunch. After all that diving, it was definitely tiring. And all this food only cost about 7 USD per person, right by the beach. Then I headed off to my in-class freediving course. Everyone who joined for the water session actually decided to finish their certificate as well. So it was all of us. We learned all about freediving, but I think the most interesting part is how, due to Boyle's law, my lungs were actually a third the size that they normally are on land when I was underwater at 20 meters depth, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. After the course, I went to check out the sunset by the beach and then headed off for dinner. By far, my favorite restaurant in Koh Tao is this spot here. I believe it's called the Charcoal Grill, and it has the most amazing food, including fresh fish and chicken and fries and calamari and everything you could dream of. This definitely was a more luxury dinner, costing me 23 US dollars for fish, chicken, calamari, and drinks. Now that I had completed all my freediving stuff, the next day was all meant for exploring. After a nice breakfast, which cost 5 US dollars, we did lots of walks on the beach and even got a massage that was right by the ocean. Massages in Thailand are so cheap. My 1-hour massage cost 6 US dollars. Following that, I went to this very cute postcard cafe. This place serves pastries, has a cute little shop, and also has a little postcard painting setup. You buy a drink and buy a postcard and you can just sit and paint for as long as you want. I'm not a big coffee person, so just opted for some water, but my water and postcard painting was like $2.50. I love having fun little activities that you can do for such a reasonable price, and it just really makes the whole trip a little bit better. That evening was another beautiful sunset by the water. This was actually the part of the beach that my hotel accesses directly, so super, super close by, and just such a beautiful view. I don't think I could ever get tired of seeing the sunsets here in Thailand. There's also this huge swing right nearby that's also really fun and feels like out of a movie when you swing into the sunset. After showering and changing once the sun went down, I went back to the Charcoal Grill for dinner. That's how much I love that spot. And took an easy stroll home later that night. Koh Tao definitely has some party bar scenes as well, but wasn't really the vibe for me this trip. Plus, tomorrow was Monday, which meant I was back at work, although I could also work from home on Mondays as I only go into the office Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I had to start that morning off with a beautiful morning dip before my first meeting of the day, then spending the rest of the day working from the hotel/the beach, with 1 or 2 swing breaks in between. Later that morning, I took a couple hours off from my workday and boarded the boat and ferry back to Chompong, then Bangkok. The ferry from Koh Tao to Chompong on its own was 30 Canadian dollars, so 22 USD. And from there, I decided to fly back to Bangkok because this flight only cost 50 Canadian dollars or 40 US dollars, which is so reasonable and so cheap. This was definitely a rather smooth trip. The ferries in general to and from Koh Tao are really big, so you don't really get super seasick and just super nice. My ferry was relatively empty, so I even got to lie down on a bench all for myself for the trip. I don't know if you could ask for a better weekend trip than this one. The timing was amazing, and with the combination of overnight bus and flights, I really got to make the most out of 4 nights on Koh Tao Island. Yes, I know Koh means island in Thai, but I said Koh Tao Island anyway. Sorry. So, overall, this trip, including all the transportation to and from Bangkok, the taxis in between spots that I didn't show, all of my meals and snacks that I purchased, as well as the actual freediving that I got to do, totaled to 500 US dollars or 700 Canadian dollars. For 5 days and 4 nights in Koh Tao, a beautiful island, beautiful beaches, and the most fun things and activities that you get to do, I definitely think this was a trip well worth it. If you ever find yourself in Bangkok, highly recommend taking a weekend trip to Koh Tao or longer if you have the chance. And if you're curious about how I spend, save, and earn money around the world while on the path to financial freedom without missing out on fun, please subscribe and follow for more content, or subscribe for more content, I guess. Okay, thank you. Bye.